Welcome, one and all, to the Hammer Territory Podcast. My name is Shawn Coleman. Hope wherever you are and wherever you are listening, you are having a wonderful, wonderful week so far. It is Thursday. It is hard to believe it is already. We're nearly a full week into August, but it's good to talk with you as always. And Stephen, it's actually good to be able to talk about an amazing performance, not only from the Braves, and I consider an amazing performance from this team actually getting a win, but also the Braves actually got an amazing performance because of their Rookie of the Year candidate. Drake Baldwin with, I won't call it a career game because we've already seen a game like this before, but perhaps the best game of his young career. We talked about it last episode. It's one of the biggest storylines of the season, and we're going to get right into it. But before we do that, Stephen, always a pleasure to talk with you. Hope you've been well, my friend.
What's up, buddy? Yeah, man. We had a fun game tonight. We got to watch a really fun game. It kind of reminded me of 2023 a little bit, where like they got down early and just like slowly came back. You know, I think they scored 6 runs in the last 3 innings to take a 4-run deficit into a 2-run win. It was just a fun game. Like you said, Drake Baldwin had a monster game. We talked about it on the last show, how important it is for Drake Baldwin to have a big last 2 months. But yeah, just a fun night, really fun night of baseball. Even though the season is effectively over, although if the Braves go 49-0 to end the year, they would be in the playoffs. That would be a 96-win team. That would probably set a couple of records. I don't know what the longest winning streak ever. I feel like it's probably less than 49. But mathematically not out of it yet. So we're gonna skew positive here. We're gonna put on our Shawn Coleman hat. But it was actually a really fun game to watch tonight. And we haven't had many of those, and we'll take as many as we can get.
And that'll do it here for us on the Hammer Territory Podcast. We're going to make sure that the most positive comment of the night comes from one Stephen Tolbert. All joking aside, there is plenty of positivity to talk about because, as you mentioned, Stephen, it's just simply the truth. The biggest storyline of the season for the rest of this year so far, I won't say the biggest storyline, but one of the biggest storylines is the performance of Drake Baldwin. Not only for him winning Rookie of the Year, how special that will be, but also the fact of what that solidifies for him as being a big part of the Braves' future and what it could add as another asset in a very strong and pivotal draft for the Braves in 2026. All those things are riding on Drake Baldwin. And I want to set the stage here for just how special this performance for Drake Baldwin was, because there's several factors that go into this. Number one, this probably is one of the most directly important weeks of the NL Rookie of the Year race that is left on the calendar, because Drake Baldwin's going head to head with 2 of his biggest competitors, Isaac Collins of the Milwaukee Brewers, as well as Agustin Ramirez of the Marlins, 2 rookies in their own right who are not having as good a years as Drake Baldwin, but they're big contributors to 2 teams who are going after the playoffs, which the Braves are not. The other thing is that the added pressure to Drake Baldwin means he has to perform, and the Braves are giving him every opportunity to. But that's exactly what he did tonight. And Stephen, the thing that stands out to me is that Drake Baldwin is not having these performances, or he's not staying consistent against, below average pitching or pitching that won't be in the majors for a long time. He took deep Yuri Perez, who legitimately is one of the best young arms in the game. The thing that stands out to me about Drake Baldwin, Stephen, is that the indicators that are playing a big part in his success are factors of his game that should allow for him to sustain this beyond this year. Hitting well against left-handers, hitting well with runners in scoring position, hitting well against quality pitching. To me, that's the most exciting part of his performance so far this year.
Yeah, I mean, I would say one of the most important parts of a young left-handed hitter's career in the early years is, how do you hit against lefties? Because so many lefties now get platooned immediately, or they get like half a year to show anything. And if they don't show anything, then they get platooned. It is very difficult to become like an everyday player as a left-handed hitter now. And listen, Drake Baldwin having a 900 OPS against lefties this year He's got better numbers against lefties than he does against righties, and he hits righties really well too. He's just been mashing lefties. That's the part that's a really like, because that is, for a left-handed hitter, that is the benchmark of, can you be an everyday player? Now, listen, he's a catcher, so he's not going to be an everyday player, obviously playing in Atlanta, but the fact that you don't have to platoon him, that you don't have to worry about him regardless of who's on the mound. Like, we've talked about all the other stuff with Drake, but that honestly might be the most important, just from a tactical standpoint of building out a lineup, that it doesn't matter who's pitching. Drake's fine. And again, tonight, he was just awesome. That second homer he hit, he was on an 0-2 pitch. It was like a 98 or 99 mile an hour fastball, and he freaking destroyed it to right center field. So super impressive stuff. I mean, I don't know what else you could say about this kid. I just really hope he can sustain, maybe not all the way up to this level, but something like this for the next 2 months. Just run away with Rookie of the Year, make it a no doubter, not just for what it will help the Braves off the field, but just for him. I mean, that would be such a cool honor to be recognized like that. And again, hitting lefties the way he has, we haven't talked about it a ton, maybe the most important aspect of what he's done so far.
Absolutely. And that's the thing that we talked about before the season, right? In Drake Baldwin, there are so many added layers to what he offers to this lineup that were needed coming into this year. He hits left-handers. He puts together great at-bats. He puts together great at-bats no matter the situation. He works counts. He can walk. He hits for power. He hits opposite field. He delivers with runners in scoring position. Those things matter when it comes to what Drake Baldwin can offer. And the other big thing to me is that there's no spot in the lineup where he is less effective. Like, he straight nails wherever you put him. And that is very, very important for a Braves team that needs as many hitters like that. I think their games are probably going to be different as time goes on, but I do not feel that it is a bad comp to suggest that he is kind of like a Brian McCann. That may be a bit lazy, but I do think that when we look now, if you go look at Brian McCann's numbers, I want to give Brian McCann credit. I looked at the numbers, and I was even about to ask on Twitter, how would you feel about Drake Baldwin having a career like Brian McCann in a Braves uniform? I went, and I don't want to put that pressure on Drake Baldwin. I know he'll never see what I put, but my point is, Brian McCann was freaking awesome as a Braves catcher, but I think that Drake Baldwin has that type of potential, and that, once again, could be a really, really awesome development before this Braves team, because the one thing that we've seen with Braves teams that have awesome catchers, they typically will win, and win at a high level.
Yeah, and it's going to be fascinating to see what they do in the offseason. Are they going to roll with Murphy and Baldwin as the catcher DH and just alternate them so they both get to hit every day? Or are they not? Or are they going to just do a typical catcher situation where one plays and one sits and go somewhere else with a DH spot? There was talk, Brad and Scott covered it, so we're not going to cover it tonight, but with the Byron Buxton stuff that came out a couple of days ago, that, would the Braves consider DHing Acuña or DHing Profar or DHing Byron Buxton? And then, of course, that affects catcher, right? Because obviously if you're going to have DH for an outfielder, then you're not going to be able to use it for your catcher. So, like, what they do is going to be very fascinating to me. But, man, it's going to be hard to convince me the best way forward is to sit his bat for 50% of the games. That's going to be a tough sell for me. Like, I really believe we got to have him in the lineup, especially, again, the way he hits lefties. This is not a situation where you need to be sitting him against lefties. He hits these guys extremely well. So it's all connected, of course, but yeah, I'm very curious to see how they're going to handle this DH catcher outfield situation they've got coming up in the winter.
It makes it a bit easier for me, actually. And what I mean by that is that with every performance like this that we see from Drake Baldwin, I love Shawn Murphy, and I think Shawn Murphy has proven that he clearly was a smart move by Alex Anthopoulos. But every performance like this from Drake Baldwin makes Shawn Murphy expendable in the offseason for two main reasons. Number one, Shawn Murphy likely is going to be your best way to be able to bring in a significant change that you need. Because of the money that he makes, you exchange that for another position of need. You have money to then invest in that position. But also, Alex Anthopoulos has proven, if we talk about the fact that he can identify reliever value very well, he can certainly identify catcher value very well. It's been very rare where he has missed on adding a catching talent to this organization, and Drake Baldwin once again does that. Tap into that skill. If there's an opportunity out there where it makes sense to trade Shawn Murphy in the offseason to address a bigger need elsewhere, go ahead and make that with the confidence you're going to be able to find a complement to Drake Baldwin. And here's the biggest thing of all, Drake Baldwin's value comes at a very cheap cost, which the Braves need as much of as possible moving forward. That's kind of where I am. Don't want to get too much into that. We got plenty of time to discuss that over time, but that's kind of where I'm at with every good performance that Drake Baldwin shows.
Yeah, I mean, listen, we'll have plenty of time to talk about it. And, from everything they've said, they want two really good catchers. I don't know that you can afford to have Drake's bat be out of the lineup that much. I don't know if B, you can afford to pay Shawn Murphy what you pay him and have him out of the lineup that much. Yeah, it's one of the more fascinating parts of when we get to the offseason is what they do at catcher, what they do at DH, and how it all connects.
But if there's one positive from this year so far, it's a really good problem to have. Yep. Remember, just 4 months ago, we were sitting here talking about, is Drake Baldwin going to take over to Shawn Murphy? And then what do we do with Shawn Murphy's contract? Now his contract clearly is an asset. Yeah. So it's a very good problem to have. And as with many problems overall, as we talked about the Braves this year, good problems are certainly a welcome development. Speaking of good developments, we learned about a few others when it comes to some of the bigger names and more pivotal names on the Braves, a couple of names that certainly could not only play again this year, but could be back much sooner rather than later. We'll discuss that in just a moment after a word from our partners.
Kratz, there are a lot of people out there that pay rent and they don't get anything for it.
Might as well change that. You can get some rewards for flights, hotels, tons of stuff.
With Built, you can earn flexible points that can be redeemed towards airlines, hotels, a future rent payment, your next Lyft ride, and much more. It doesn't stop there. Built is about making your entire neighborhood more rewarding. You can dine out at your favorite local restaurants and enjoy experiences just for Built members every month. They're turning a monthly expense into an opportunity to earn rewards and discover the best that your neighborhood has to offer. Your rent is finally working for you. Earn points on rent and around your neighborhood, wherever you call home, by going to joinbuilt.com/foul. That's joinbilt.com/FOUL. Make sure to use our URL so they know we sent you. joinbuilt.com/foul. Go for it.
So, Stephen, some more positive news when it comes to the Braves. It's so weird to sit here and be talking about you. Actually, let's take a step back here for a second, Stephen. Not only are we talking about the fact that the Braves earlier this week actually won on a Sunday, we're also talking about Drake Baldwin having some positive performances to further secure his Rookie of the Year award. But now we're seeing some positive injury news. I'm not going to know what world we're living in, what part of the multiverse we're in if all this positive news keeps happening. But hey, we're certainly here to discuss as much of it as possible. What I'm getting at is that we did learn further news on both Ronald Acuna Jr. as well as Chris Sale. I know that we discussed this just last episode, but it's important to give as much news as possible on those two because it seems like they're coming back sooner rather than later. Stephen, let's start with Ronald Acuna Jr.
Yeah, so it was reported today, it was DOB, Dave O'Brien of The Athletic, that Ronald was on the field taking BP. He was seen taking ground balls in the infield a couple of days ago, and people, of course, started speculating like crazy. I don't think it means anything. But according to Dave O'Brien, he looked fantastic on the field today. It was reported he had zero, ill effects from the calf injury. So Ronald got put on the IL on the 30th, July 30th, which means he is eligible to come off the IL on Saturday. Now, I have no idea. There was no indication given that he was coming off the IL as soon as he's available to. So, I wouldn't expect that. But, after Alex gave his comments about how he's not going to sit a healthy Acuna and he's not going to sit a healthy Sale, I am curious to see what they do. I mean, if it's a 10-day IL trip he doesn't need a rehab assignment or anything like that. He can just come off. But what are they going to do? And how long are they going to wait? Of course, everybody wants them to be, overly abundantly cautious. I 100% agree with that. But like, what is the line for them is going to be the question. Where is that line where, okay, he's clearly just healthy. We're going to start playing him. I don't know. We'll find out. But I did want to mention that technically he can come off the IL on Saturday. No one's expecting that, but technically that is where we are on the calendar.
So the other question that I pose is this, Stephen, is that say he comes back, today is August the 7th. Say he's back by the 15th within the next week. Where do you put Acuña in the lineup? You batted him third for a few weeks, and the offense in general, it picked up a bit. But I feel like that he still is most effective out of that leadoff spot. It sets a whole tone for this lineup. I know, again, that they had their struggles with him there, but I still would just even beyond him getting the most at-bats in the lineup, it just sets a quality tone. So many different ways he can impact the game. Where do you put him in the lineup once he's back?
Yeah, that's a good question. So in terms of like modern day analytical driven lineup construction, you typically don't want to put your best hitter third. And I know for 150 years, the best hitter in every lineup hit third. Chipper Jones, for instance, hit third his whole career, basically. And the reason that you don't typically want to do it is because the number of time you come up to the plate with 2 out and nobody on. And that's why a lot of times in modern lineups, you'll see the best hitter on the team either bat second or fourth. So it is interesting. If you're going to do the Olsen Baldwin thing, 2 and 3, it does make sense to put Acuña between them so you don't stack lefties. Now Olsen and Baldwin can both hit lefties, so it's not that big a deal. I don't know. Obviously with Profar too, he's a switch hitter, so you can move him anywhere. Profar is walking more, which helps the on base or which helps the leadoff argument. I do like having Acuña in spots where he can be more of a run producer than a run creator, especially since he's not running. I don't know. The reason I don't have a good answer for you. I'm just kind of figuring this out in my head as I'm talking. That's a really good call. I would probably stick him third just for the end of the season, just to see how it goes. I don't really love that. Me personally, I would want Acuña batting set first or second. But if they want to do third, if they want to do Profar, Olsen, Acuña, Baldwin, I'm fine with that. I mean, listen, lineup construction rarely matters, and it certainly doesn't matter when you're 20 games under 500, but it does tell us a little bit about what maybe they're thinking for next year. So it's an important question to answer. And I don't know. I don't know what the answer is to that. Do you have an opinion? What do you think he should?
I actually like the idea of potentially batting him second, because then you have the ability to, put him between, Profar, Acuña, Baldwin, then Olsen, maybe. I could see that making sense because then Baldwin is getting some good pitches to hit in between Acuña as well as Olsen. Now, Olsen possibly, walks more. But yeah, I think that makes sense. You're stacking right now your 4 best hitters, and you've got your 2 best sources of on base percentage right past each other. But the one development that I am happy to see is that for so many years, we, kind of got the feeling that Acuña, really preferred to be in that leadoff spot. Like he did not want to be moved. Seeing him be okay with it now and being just as productive out of another spot besides the leadoff spot, that's encouraging. So why not bat him second? I don't mind that at all. Get someone on in front of him, have him do his damage, and then have others hit behind him. I think it's a luxury that you could certainly explore in time. And then when you get Austin Riley back, then it becomes more interesting. But I will say this, that Acuña, Baldwin, Olsen, Riley quartet moving forward, I get people may not believe this, and I can understand that from this year. That legitimately could be one of the strongest quartets of batters that you can see in the majors. Like that's the potential that this team has. So bat them at the top of the order, see what you got. I know that order this year really doesn't make sense, but it at least is fun to experiment for the future.
Yeah, and listen, I think Acuña is probably more willing because he understands he's not running as much. It's not the same level threat. It used to be Ronald would walk 20% of the time at the top of the lineup, and he would steal second every time. It's like a double. And so in that situation, you want that guy leading off. It just starts rallies consistently if he's not just hitting the ball over the fence. So I do think he's probably more willing to move down now that he's not running. With the quartet potential, it's going to come a lot of it's going to come down to Riley. What Austin Riley looks like, but of course the potential is there. I mean, even now the Braves have a insane amount of potential. It's just we've watched for 2 years this offense, flutter for way too much of it to not at least ask some questions about it. But you're 100% right. The potential has not gone anywhere. They still have the potential to be the best lineup in baseball with the talent they have on the team.
Absolutely. But speaking of talent elsewhere on the mound, we're going to see one of the premier talents in the game once again sooner rather than later. Chris Sale today through a live BP. Everything seemed to go according to plan. It's very likely that he's going to have at least one rehab start, which makes perfect sense. But Stephen, I'm going to let you discuss it because you put it in such a fun way on Twitter when it comes to what should the Braves do with Sale. Should they sit him? Should they put him on the shelf or give him an opportunity to be able to pitch? I'll let you explain how you put that, but it certainly seems as if the window for Sale returning is much quicker than later.
Yeah, I know all these guys get grouped together because they're hurt, but if you break a bone, I put you in a different category. Like, returning from a broken bone is very straightforward and very simple. It's the bone's just got to heal. And once it heals and the pain's gone, you're fine. Now, if you're coming back from an elbow or a shoulder like Lopez or like Grant Holmes, that's a completely different ballgame. There's a whole different level of caution that you need to show. But Chris Sale's coming back from a broken rib. Like, it's very straightforward. And listen, if he's healthy to pitch, and clearly he is, he literally pitched a live BP today. Who in God's name is going to walk up to Chris Sale and say, I know you're healthy. You're not pitching. You're going to sit for 2 months and then sit for another 6 months until the season starts next year. You might get murdered. Chris Sale might murder you. I mean, he is one of the most competitive people on the planet. And I don't care who you're, there's no one that's going to tell Chris Sale that. So, and I don't really think you should. Again, it's a broken bone. He broke a rib. Like, once the pain's gone and the bone's healed, let him pitch. And, he made a good point today. I think he was talking to the media guys. Like, that helps him set up his offseason, which he needs to set himself up for 2026. If he's already got some innings under his belt in 2025, he knows he can go into 2026 with a completely normal offseason, which was the key to getting vintage Chris Sale last year, is that he had a normal offseason. So I'm 100%. I know people are bothered by it, and I would be bothered by it if it was ligament, if it was muscle, but it's a bone. It's a broken bone. And this helps him set up his offseason going into 2026. It doesn't bother me at all. I completely understand why they're doing this.
And I agree with you on that. Now, I know that this is not the case for all of, the names on the Braves that we were hoping would be significant contributors over the next few seasons. But one thing that I will say could potentially be a positive, could potentially be a silver lining for this year, is we could go into the offseason, especially if Riley comes back healthy, with Olsen, Acuña, Baldwin, several of our best hitters, and Sale, Schwellenbach, as well as Strider. All those names could go into the offseason relatively healthy and have the ability to go through an offseason where they're healthy. So that could be a blessing in disguise. I think that should be a priority for the Braves, but that could be a big way to end this season to really get next season started off with the bang. But that wasn't the only news that was out there today regarding the Braves. We'll discuss more on what was a newsworthy Thursday in just a moment after another word from our partners.
AJ, I'm on my phone right now in Arena Club, and I'm looking at the Emerald slab packs, and I see in the Grail a Bobby Witt Jr. 2020 Bowman Chrome Prospect Auto Gold Refractor card.
Give me that. Give me your phone. I'm gonna get you to
you gotta buy
that to me.
I don't have it.
I thought you had it.
Get a slab pack. No, I don't have that.
Then give me your slab pack.
That card's worth.
You buy me slab pack, Scott, so I can get the Bobby Witt Jr. Gold Refractor 2020 Bowman Chrome Auto, because that sounds awesome.
And it's worth a lot.
It's worth a lot. He's a stud. He's not going down. Get a Grail. Get a grill. I want a grill, Scott. Give me the holy grill. You do it.
To do that, you must get yourself a slab pack in Arena Club, or if you want to get it for a friend, you can do that too. And right now, you can get 20% off your first slab pack or your first card purchase. If you're going on there and you're just like, hey, I want a specific card, I find it there, I want to grab it for my showroom, arenaclub.com/foul, and use the code FOUL.
So, Stephen, today, of course, with the news about, potentially selling Acuña coming back, that was really positive news to see. But also one of the biggest subjects that people have talked about over the past year or so is what exactly are the full details of the Braves' financial situation? Because there have been, what we see in the news, what we see reported, and then what we see in terms of actions of the team, they're not always adding up over the past 12 plus months or so. Today, there was a further update. It's the normal update that you see when it comes to the quarterly earnings report with the Braves, but I know that it garnered a lot of reaction. You do a very good job when it comes to the finances and payroll of the team, kind of digging into the details. What does it actually mean? What did you take from the news today on the quarter 2 earnings for the Braves?
Yeah, so the Braves are obviously a publicly traded company. Listen, I do want to get one thing out to start with this, because I still see it every day. People still think Liberty Media own the Braves. The Braves broke off from Liberty Media like 3 or 4 years ago, and they started Atlanta Braves Holding Incorporated, which is its own separate publicly traded company. And the chairman, president, and CEO of that company is Terry McGuirk. And that is the Braves, essentially the Braves owner. Now, he doesn't own the team. He runs the publicly traded company that owns the team. But like when the owners have their meeting, MLB has their owners meeting. It's not somebody from Liberty Media who goes to that meeting for the Braves. It's Terry McGuirk. Like, Liberty Media has absolutely nothing to do with running the Braves in any way, shape, or form, from finances to any decision making. It is entirely Atlanta Braves Holding Incorporated, who is chairman by Terry McGuirk, who runs the team. So today they had their Q2, their quarter 2 earnings report that came out. Obviously, it's a publicly traded company, so they have to release earnings report. That came out today. Obviously, Q2 is April, May, and June. So this was the report for April, May, and June, when the team was still relatively, at least pretending to compete, right? Attendance hadn't really dropped. And the revenues were really strong. And I'm not going to go through the entire earnings report on here. It's a lot of financial jargon, and there's no point. The quick and dirty of it is revenue has gone up, really, really strong revenue in quarter 2. Attendance was still good. The Braves call it their multi-use real estate, which is the Battery, had a really, really strong quarter. Obviously, the television rights money went up because they added streaming. And so revenues were up. And that's kind of the main takeaway. And then about midway through the report, they moved into operating cost. And one of the main things that people noticed was that players' salaries was an operating cost that was down from the year before. So revenue is up and payroll is down. And listen, this was a big point of consternation for us in the offseason. We talked about it endlessly, that the Braves cut payroll. I mean, they did. Now, Alex would tell you that they didn't cut it. They just didn't find the right deals to spend the money, but it's effectively the same thing. They didn't spend as much on payroll this year as they did last year. So they cut payroll, despite the fact that revenues are through the roof. We've said it a million times on this show. The Battery, the Braves, they print money. They make so much revenue. The Battery is a moneymaker. The new stadium, it's just a money. They make a ton of money. And the one good thing about being a publicly traded company, I think the only publicly traded company in Major League Baseball, is that we get a full earnings report. Most fans don't get this. They don't get to see inside the books of their team. We do, because it's a publicly traded company. So we get to see exactly what they spend on whatever, including payroll. And so we know for a fact that payroll was down. The numbers do not lie. They're not allowed to lie on these things. Revenue's up and payroll's down. And that was kind of the main takeaway everybody had today was, hey guys, you're making money hand over fist. What the hell? Why is payroll down? And it, of course, especially doesn't look good in a season where you're on pace to lose as many games as you've lost in almost 40 years. So yeah, it got some attention today.
Yeah, and I think that I came out of the trade deadline with the question. The number one question that I had was, how confidently can you trust the Braves' resourcefulness, the resourcefulness that the Braves should be able to have in order to put them in the right direction? Well, the question, I think, is answered. The Braves are swimming in money. That's just absolutely the truth. I do feel that if you have a concern, are they going to then reinvest that into this team swimming in the right direction? That's a fair question to have. The thing that I will say, though, is that the Braves, from the front office to the people that run it, be above that to the players, everybody knows that this team, the word was they were a model that other teams are going after. Well, the reason why that model works just about as much as anything is when this team is winning. One thing that can certainly remind you of just how good that you had it when you were winning is when you are not winning, which they are not doing right now. So to me, and I know, again, I have a positive outlook on things more often than not, to me, that gives me a little bit more of a, how shall I put this? It reassures me that the Braves realize what's going on. Yes, they know that they're making good money off the field. It needs to go back on the field for that product to be as good as possible, because that's what's going to help to continue things to be as good as they are off the field as they have been. So a bunch of different words. My point that I'm getting at, the resourcefulness that the Braves need is certainly there. I think in time we're going to see that reflected on reinvesting in this team to give us what we need to get back on track.
Yeah, and I'll say this, the comment that Terry McGuirk made was that the Braves are the model franchise in Major League Baseball that every other team is chasing. And of course, that got a lot of publicity and headlines because the Braves are 10 games behind the Marlins right now. So like everyone's like, what are we talking about? I want to say this. From a business standpoint, he is 100% right. The Braves model was somewhat revolutionary. What they did was they picked up and moved out of the city. When they moved from Turner Field to Truist Park, they moved into the suburbs. And not only did they move into the suburbs, but they bought the land and they bought all the surrounding land so they could control the area directly around their park. And they could build it exactly the way they wanted it. And that was always the problem with Turner Field, was the Braves didn't control any of the land around it. So they had no control over what was happening around the park, just outside the park. When they moved to Cobb County, they made sure that they had not only the stadium, but all the surrounding area, and they could build up the Battery exactly how they want it. And listen, I know for a fact there are teams that come to that park to tour it, to pick the Braves' brains on what they did and how they did it. Like, it really is a model for other organizations, not just in baseball, in sports. So he is not wrong about that. I know for a fact there are teams that literally fly to Atlanta to hear presentations on exactly what they did and how they did it. The thing is, maybe don't say it, quite the way he said it when you're getting your ass kicked every night on the field. Like, that's, it just doesn't look great. Now, it was an earnings report. It's kind of a rah-rah event for, shareholders anyway. So he's going to spin it as positively as possible. But yeah, it's not great optics talking about how you are the model franchise in all of Major League Baseball. Meanwhile, you have like the third worst record in the sport. Like, read the room a little bit.
It's all about perspective, right? You may have a business model that other major league teams aspire to do on their own, that other teams aspire to be like. But the thing that we're used to as Braves country is seeing a model of winning that other teams aspire to be to as well. And that's what we need to get back at being consistent at. I feel like that will certainly be the case, but certainly want for the resourcefulness to show in terms of being reinvested into the team. And hey, you know what? Actions speak louder than words. We'll see if the next 12 months can certainly reflect what we hope that looks like instead of what we've seen over the past 12 months.
And I'll say this, when you release revenue reports like this, which are like, we're making so much money, it's not even funny, it adds pressure to do so, to add to the team. Now, listen, when they release the Q3, the third quarter reports in like November, the revenue is not going to be as good because attendance is going to tank the last 2 months of the year. But still, when you release revenue like this, it does add pressure because every fan hears about it. Every fan knows you're making tons of money. It adds pressure to, put up or shut up in the offseason.
Absolutely. And, we've got the full off season to certainly discuss this. Hopefully an off season that will be much more effective than last off season and the trade deadline was. One other fun thing to look forward to this weekend as we wrap up this edition of the Hammer Territory podcast, Hurston Waldrop, not official as of yet, but all indications seem to point the fact that he will be pitching again on Saturday, probably that first game on Saturday. Stephen, we talk about Drake Baldwin making the most of his moment. These players who we want to see them succeed at the major league level for this year because it means they can be contributors for hopefully better times in the future. Hurston Waldrop looks like he's going to get his opportunity against a pretty, I don't know what the right word is, a bigger threat as an opponent than we thought they would be in the Marlins, who are trying to go after the playoffs. Hurston Waldrop is going to get another quality opportunity on Saturday. Hopefully he makes the most of it.
Yeah, I mean, we figured this is what was going to happen. The only way that Hurston Waldrop can come up is as the 27th man on a doubleheader day, because when you're the 27th man, it doesn't count that you got optioned less than 15 days ago. So by rule, the only way he can come up is if he's the 27th man, and that's why everybody assumes he's pitching. And then Snit also kind of hinted that he's pitching the first game on Saturday, the doubleheader against the Marlins. So it'll be fun to see him again. It was a really strong first outing. All reports have been that, he's made some big strides in AAA. Obviously, he's a very big name. I don't care how big of a fan you are or casual fan you are. Most fans have heard of Hurston Waldrop. He was a first-round pick. He was also an SEC, baseball, pretty big name in SEC baseball country for Florida. So everybody knows him. And it's a big deal that he takes a big step, especially since we're probably not going to have AJ Smith-Shawver next year. There's a decent chance you're not going to have Grant Holmes next year. Waldrop's development is a big storyline. And so that's a big start. And we'll be watching it. And we'll talk about it. I'll see anything that happens. We'll talk about it on the show, but that's a big deal. And I'm happy for him. And, I hope he can really end the season strong in Atlanta.
Absolutely. And the one thing that I want to end on is that, we want to see, the opportunity to see Hurston Waldrop perform and, really be able to, make the most of his now for the future. Well, one thing that I will say is this: I'm not going to get on my soapbox or anything like that, but I was talking with a buddy of mine, him and another friend of mine. They're taking their families to the game on Saturday. Is that I understand that fans want for the Braves to be as good as possible. And I understand that the fans are disappointed in how the Braves have performed so far this year. But I will also say this because I recently got to experience it at a Braves game for the first time with my son. Make the most of those opportunities that you can. Even if the Braves are struggling, even if they're not performing well, that there's plenty of opportunity to make the most of the experience. We just talked about how much the Braves earned from the Battery and from the stadium and how they're a business model other teams are aspiring to. Well, it's one of the biggest reasons why is because it's one of the best experiences in baseball to enjoy. I know that the biggest factor in that is the performance on the field, but if you're going to a Braves game, make the most of it. Enjoy it, and I certainly hope that you do. Hopefully they'll get some wins. 4 games in 3 days, including a doubleheader on Saturday. You can't beat that. So I feel better times are ahead, but even in the present, if you get the opportunity, make the most of it and enjoy the hell out of being able to watch baseball, especially with those that you love. Stephen, anything else from you as we wrap up this edition of the Hammer Territory podcast?
No, listen, we're going to end it the same way we started it, 49-0, and they're in the playoffs.
Yeah.
So
hold on.
Acuña's coming back. Sale's coming back.
Riley's
coming back. I'm just saying, people always accuse me. I've been told that this show has been too negative lately. If you look at the standings, you'll probably understand why it's probably been a little negative, but we'll end it on this 49-0, and they're going to the playoffs.
The longest winning streak in MLB history, Stephen, is 26 games by the 1916 New York Giants. So, hey, you know what? 109 years later, if a record's been out there for 109 years, I know that they talk about these breakable records in the game, the hits record, Cy Young's record, Nolan Ryan's strikeouts. Let's take the win streak off of that. But the best way for you to possibly do that, win 2 in a row.
That's true. You cannot win 49 in a row until you win 2 in a row.
Win 2 in a row. And if Drake Baldwin wants to hit 2 home runs a game and make history himself, you know what? By September, he'll break Bond's record. Let's just make history all over the place.
Yeah.
For Stephen Tolbert, you can find him at _outliers. Always realistic and keeping things in perspective here on the Hammer Territory podcast. My name's Shawn Coleman. You can find me at StatsSAC on Twitter /X. Hammer Territory all across all forms of social media. Part of the Foul Territory family of podcasts. That one didn't go as smooth because it didn't settle on the head. But regardless, always fun to be with you. Can't thank y'all enough for the support. Hope that you have a wonderful weekend. Enjoy the weather. If you're back to school as well, hope that you and your loved ones make the most of that as well. But enjoy these weekends. And with Braves baseball, it's always fun, whether in person or on TV when they win. Till next time, go Braves. We'll talk to you again soon here on the Hammer Territory podcast.